Greetings, dear friends and neutrally inclined persons, and to hell with our enemies. I am Commandant Alex. And I want to tell about a certain situation that I witnessed yesterday and a sort of baffling and surprising and in a way disappointing uh, aspect of one of parts of that situation. I was on some business in St. George area of Staten Island that's near the ferry. Um, and as I was already wrapping up my activities, um, we saw, and first we heard some commotion from street. We in the place where I was at the time, in the building where I was. And then, as we looked out of the windows, we saw that there seemed to be brewing a fight between a couple black boys, roughly, I guess, 14, 15 years of age, perhaps most likely from the nearby located Curtis High School. Um, and my impression was that it was not just gonna be a fight, it might have even been an attempt at mugging, because that was my impression. I may be wrong, but my impression was that it was like a bunch of boys against one other boy. There was some yelling, some noise. We started looking out, and the boys noticed that we were looking out. And one of the people working in that office, a white man, a nice man, I got absolutely nothing but sympathy towards him. But he said, speaking to me and other people inside the premise at that moment, that you know those boys should not mind us. Calm down. Nobody's calling the cops. Saying basically that even though they should have probably taken their fight somewhere else where less strangers would see it, but because they were doing it right in the middle of the street essentially. But if they were going to do that right there, we would not be getting involved. We would not be getting calling the police or trying to interject ourselves. Um, so they were free to do it. I must note, by the way, that it was strange in itself that there was no police or other law enforcement around at that time, because it was about, I would say, quarter after 5, which is a time slightly later than when the main bulk of school kids leave the premises of their educational institution and go home. Uh, at that time, there is still quite a few kids on the streets. And that's an area, St. George is an area where the police presence is always heavy. It's a place, of course, it's not far from where Eric Garner was killed, tragically, almost 3 years ago. It's an area where, as I said, Curtis High School is located, and I think some other educational institutions as well. It's an area known sometimes for maybe having some social issues. It's an area with some projects. So, and it's also a place, the place where we were is right next door to one of the court buildings on the island. And it's also very close to the city hall. How come at that moment there was not a police person, not a court marshal or anybody of that sort, is itself a little bit of mystery to me. But it's also not a mystery, but just a disappointing uh, experience to hear that man with whom I was up there in that office saying that they should not be fearing or minding. We were not going to call the cops. I thought the normal, the citizenly position would and should be to actually call the cops or seriously consider doing that, because we were witnessing a disturbance, a possible attempt at bodily harm, possible violation of person's rights and dignity and well-being. And I thought, I understand that people don't want to get involved. They don't want to get any more into any more trouble. You never know. He works at that office. These kids are often around there. They might memorize our looks and even attempt, if we were to call the cops, they could remember it and try to retaliate sometime later. I can understand all those considerations, but just to say it's all right, let these black kids fight. The guy I'm talking about, he was white, who said that. It's max of, I don't know, uh, indifference and a little bit of kind of ironical arrogance, if you will. Like, what you gonna do? These are blacks. They live in bad neighborhood. There is no point, no use in trying to interfere, even if somebody is gonna get severely harmed or maybe even killed. Not our business. I think this attitude that it's not our business is very, very unfortunate, and it might be one of the reasons why our country and our city are not in as great shape. They're in fairly fine shape, but not as great a shape as they could have been in. I think this attitude is one of the signs of decline of any society when people do not invest in their city's future, in their neighborhood's future, in their nation's future. They just want to abstain in order not to be bothered, in order not to bring upon themselves some kind of additional discomfort. Uh, I think that to say that, and especially to say that so lightheartedly, as like if nothing was going on, to say that it's okay, guys, we're not gonna call the cops, fight all you want, was wrong. Um, I don't know honestly if I would have called the cops if I saw something of that sort. I find myself periodically in similar situations when I think that such an action could be warranted, but usually I don't take such an action. But this was a bit more than, say, when you see a little kid crying and getting yelled at by their parents, and the next minute the kid is laughing and forgot all about what just happened. This was a little more than people exchanging a couple nasty words on the street. This was possible, major violence there. Um, while I will not say for sure that I would have called the cops, I had an urge to do that, and the person standing next to me saying, "It's okay, relax, kids, nobody's gonna do it, nobody's gonna preclude you from fighting, for beating that guy all you want." In my opinion, that was wrong and unfortunate. This was Commandante Alex, and so long.